everyone. I'm a professor in the Department of Political Science, and the course I was teaching is Political Science 101. This is kind of a workhorse course for us. We get about 500 students per academic year. It's large. It's Introduction to American Politics. It's extremely diverse in all kinds of dimensions. We've got students from all different majors, all different ranks. We also have students with all kinds of previous exposure to American politics. So a lot of them come from terrific high schools. They're US born. They think they've heard it all before. And then we get a lot of students increasingly these days from abroad who, if they know anything about US politics, it's through some websites or God help us, through some of these talk shows that they see with people yelling at each other. So they come in with all kinds of expectations. They're all over the map, in other words. And I've been teaching this course for a while. I have a system that I was pretty comfortable with in terms of the storyline, but there were some obvious things I wanted to experiment with in the redesign. First, just to echo some of what was said before, one of the main virtues early on that was apparent to me is the sort of mixture, the benefits of mixing it up with other faculty colleagues who are from physics and chemistry and agronomy. Lesson one for me was how similar the kind of challenges are across the board. And I think in liberal arts we like to think that we have our special problems that the people teaching the periodic table wouldn't encounter or something like that. But that's really not true. The questions have to do with student engagement. How do you keep that enthusiasm going? Active learning, how do you really involve them? How do you take into account the sort of space issues, the size issues? Can you get the same bang for the buck talking in a large lecture hall compared to a small group? So it was good to talk about that in our weekly seminars. For my purposes, I'm sort of a believer in the spirit of experimentation. I only wanted to tweak a few things. I didn't have any major desire to reshape the pedagogy, but I did want to experiment with a few things just to see how much bang for the buck there was. The first thing I did was I clarified the objectives, and this seems like one of the most obvious things that I really haven't thought through thoroughly. Sort of after a student takes your course, how is that student going to be different? And that's a question I never really asked myself. And it was helpful to formalize that. And as an aside, I've passed that along to a student I'm mentoring now, a doctoral student who's teaching 101 for the first time this semester. And that helped her kind of clarify things. In terms of active learning, I decided to chuck the term paper. I had previously assigned a conventional 16 page. You've all written these term papers, and I just thought last time I was kicking myself. Whatever the right way to go with writing is, that can't possibly be it anymore, because it was just, I didn't think it was a valuable experience. What I substituted in were several nifty active learning assignments that I developed as an impact fellow. I'll give you one example. I stole from the Washington Post. If you ever read the Washington Post, there's this great column, a guy who does fact checker. And so some candidate gives a speech or something, and then the next day's column will be taking selective claims and fact checking them. And he's got a great scale. It's called the Pinocchio scale. So up to 4 Pinocchios, the bigger the lie, the more Pinocchios the fact earns. And so I had students use the Pinocchio scale and to fact check some claim that they read in a newspaper editorial. And that was a sort of quick exercise. It was easy to pass it back and forth on Blackboard. I had 4 such things spaced out throughout the semester. So just getting me thinking about active learning I thought was useful. The other, I used some instructional tools that I thought were neat. Maybe you've heard of some of these. I hadn't. They were new to me. One was Boilercast. Okay, so anything said in class, student sneezes, anything, it was all recorded. Okay, but they also had this thing called a vodcast, so that all my PowerPoint material can also get recorded, and they can look at it all on iTunes. Now, I was worried that that might depress attendance. I mean, if they can see me after the fact, why show up, especially for a 9:30 class. In fact, attendance was higher this time around than in comparably sized classes in the past. And I know people did, I got downloading statistics, so I know the material was downloaded. And in fact, occasionally when the Boilercast site would go down, I would hear about it quickly. Students would email me saying, oh, I need to go look at your vodcast. I need to look at this thing and tell me when it's going to go up again. So they were monitoring it very actively. So that was very good, especially for the international students, as George was mentioning. We're dealing with a very diverse student population in terms of their language skills, and so that was very, very helpful, I think, for them, so they could hear me 2, 3, whatever times. The other thing I used was Hot Seat, which is what I know there are a lot of different capabilities with that software, but it's really sort of a social networking device that was developed by ITAP, and I used it as a way to just increase the contact points with students. I would pose a question after each class session, a simple question, Twitter length kinds of questions, and they would give responses. And I just asked them to chime in at least twice. Some students chimed in far more than twice. I think the guy who got the prize was 49 times responses. Just the things, riffing off of some of the lecture material. I was a little worried that students might, we're building community, and that, let's hope that's a good, students, if they started flaming each other or something like that. I was a little worried about how that might go. We're talking about politics and political science. No problems. I was surprised. Nothing. I didn't have to get anybody off the island or anything like that. It all just worked terrifically. And then in terms of just assessment, I'm going to do a lot of assessment because, as Tim Sands mentioned a few minutes ago, I have lots of prior data from comparably sized Political Science 101 sections. So I've got lots of wherewithal to do some statistical analysis, but my own impressions for now. Students did significantly better on exams, and comparable exams being used as a baseline from past sessions. Attendance, as I mentioned, was a bit better. Course evaluations, better, significantly better. You guys in Impact, we all, I think, one reason to go into teaching is we like to develop rapport with students. We have a soft spot for students. I think your evaluations are going to go up. That's good to see. Also, on a more qualitative level, more office drop-ins. Students would buy me coffee by the end of the semester. Lots of good things happened as a result on that level. So I think that makes it all the more enjoyable. But new Impact Fellows, I really wish you well. I think you can look forward to a lot of good exchanges here as the second cohort gears up. Thanks very much.